With the border crisis growing day by day, you have to ask yourself, where do you draw the line between someone who may be perfectly fine and a cartel member? From people drowning in rivers to the inhumane cages they're being kept in, and various scandals from our government regarding the border. We will cover this and more on today's episode of Policast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Policast. We're your hosts, Alan
and Marshall, and today we'll be covering the border in its entirety, the crisis thereof.
Yeah, the crisis that's happening at the border currently.
Yeah, and everything that has to do with that. So,
it's a big mess that's going on right now, and it definitely needs to be talked about, especially with a lot of the stuff that's in the news currently.
In the news currently, and then a lot of the things that have been brought on by our previous president, Donald Trump, and our current president, a lot of the things that he promised to fix that haven't been fixed subsequently.
Won't be fixed.
Yeah, won't be fixed, because, as we're seeing, he's definitely probably not going to be the president in the next election cycle.
I think the word you're looking for is incompetent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially with approval rates at not 40%. That's way too high. At about 32%.
Record lows. They dropped actually from 40% to 32% of the American population.
At the last time we've seen approval rates this low was the last days of Nixon.
Well, and according to Gallup, you could argue Trump's term, but it wasn't actually true because Gallup's, of course, a left-leaning.
Yeah, I mean, and by most other polls, he had about a 50% approval rate, which makes sense
throughout the whole of his presidency. So,
yeah. So, if you are just tuning in, this is your first episode with us. We're Alan and Marshall, as said. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram, real_Policast. We plan on eventually posting short little maybe blooper reels or stuff like that on there.
And then clips just from the regular podcast. So.
And definitely, definitely YouTube as well. We have the works for a Patreon currently, which we are attempting to set up, and a few other things that are out there.
And Patreon, please consider donating once we have it up, because that really helps us expand on the podcast and helps us achieve that 2 uploads a week mark that we're trying to hit every single week. And it's really difficult for 2 students, So,
exactly. It's really difficult for two students, especially when we're doing a bunch of school. We have trips during the summer that are planned.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of stuff. It really helps us and lets us know that you guys are out there and that you support us.
So if you're willing or able, it'll just help us so much with everything, and it'll help the quality of our content increase. Donations help. We're going to most likely pour all of our money back into the podcast, and for the first 5 Patreon donors, we will be giving at least free memberships for our website and app once we make it, and our YouTube channel for at least a year, if not more. And that's just depending. So
absolutely, feel free to also reach out to us on Google, on Gmail. Our Gmail is policast32@gmail.com. We check up on it daily.
Yep.
We make sure to check it, respond to emails. We have had a lot of great support, especially from our first episode. Thank you guys so much for all the support that you've given us.
And if you haven't watched that first episode, please go back and watch it. The reviews we got on it were great. So.
I listened to it twice. Literally, I listened to it twice. I loved the episode.
So enough flattering ourselves. Let's get into the actual content. So
the border.
Yeah, it's a hotbed for activity, from the cartel operating in Mexico to the United States, and then eventually to Canada with illegal drug transportation through mules and a bunch of other people, to illegal immigrants that are innocent, that we're keeping in cages.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, and they come over to to generally seek asylum. Some come over to seek harm, but for right now, we're going to focus on the people that come over to seek asylum. Now, there is a way that you can do that, and the way that you do that is you have to first seek asylum through the government. And, we, as a nation, we need to stop accepting people that are from Honduras, that are from Guatemala, that are from the countries that are in the Caribbean, that want to come over and are only coming over because, hey, it's America.
Well, but also a lot of people subscribe to the American dream, and we love America because it's such a diverse nation.
It is
by
such
nearly
a diverse
every
nation.
By nearly every measure, we are probably one of the least racist countries in the world.
Which is kind of funny from what you hear in the news nowadays.
Yeah, no matter how much the left likes to propagate that we're like this horribly racist country that absolutely hates black people. Oh, you're such a racist. I mean, it's crazy. But I've talked to people from Europe and in other countries, and by nearly every measure, the United States is one of the most culturally diverse and accepting nations on the planet.
Absolutely.
And that is what our founders intended it to be. We see that with immigrations because of wars and stuff like that, but there's this really fun thing that you could do, and you know what that's called?
Immigrate legally.
That's a mind blower.
Wow, I never would have guessed.
way.
I never would have guessed that was an option, especially because we have people pouring over the border, thousands by thousands. We have people that are crossing the Rio Grande, and they're dying in the river.
They're drowning.
And they're getting swept away by the currents. And then they get across the border, and the Border Patrol picks them up, and they say, "Hey, we're here. We're picking you up. We're going to take you to a transfer facility." They take them to a transfer facility, and they lock them in cages to where they're being quote unquote processed for the next 6 months.
And then after those 6 months, they can be totally non-functioning members of society. That their only basis in life is to vote Democrat, get free food, get free health care, and live the rest of their lives as a true American.
Absolutely. Now, so the point of asylum, the countries that are direct border sharers with you, which is just directly next to you,
which is Canada and Mexico.
Mexico for the United States.
You could argue for Cuba because it's an island nation and it's so close.
Yeah. So Mexico and Canada, that is generally conceived by the UN as the only two countries that should be able to seek asylum in the United States. The UN has made the argument that only the countries that you share a border with can seek asylum in your country. And the United States has flipped that on its head and said, well, what about Honduras? What about Guatemala and Venezuela? Right? What about all these other countries that are sitting there out in the middle, not sharing a border with the United States? And it's not just people from Mexico. It's people from all other countries.
And we're not xenophobic. We love immigrants from any country as long as they immigrate legally.
And that's the key term.
And they're functioning members of society.
Exactly.
Because without functioning members of society, then all we have is a bunch of Democrat votes and a heavier burden on taxpayer dollars.
We're not directly saying that Democrats don't work either. Well, I mean that's kind of
debatable.
Yeah, that's debatable. I would also like to go out and collect my COVID check. That is still going around.
Yeah.
And collect unemployment for the rest of my life. Sit on my ass in my house. But
or become a congressperson and make paid leave for yourself and
make $300,000 a year depending on who you are.
Or more.
Yeah, or more.
Especially with insider trading, but
it is. This country has gotten to unbelievable rates because of a lot of the things that are happening in the border. Now, I agree. Yes, they are people. Yes, we need to process them swiftly.
And treat them humanely.
We need to treat them humanely. We don't need to send them to cages. That is something that is completely wrong. And now, this is something that is a topic that a lot of people don't like to argue, where it says, oh, Trump started the Trump started the cages. Trump did not start the cages. The cages started under the Obama administration.
And were kept up during the Obama administration. And guess who's the president right now? The vice president of the Obama administration. So if you thought by all of his crazy, lengthy campaign promises that he was going to help the illegal immigrants out and get them out of cages. He's just like every other
typical politician where they say what they want. I mean, and this is the way that it works. Black lives only matter to Democrats every 4 years.
Once every 4 years.
Once every 4 years. That is the only time they ever matter to Democrats. I have a question to you, real quick. Right now, do you hear anything about the border crisis or how we're helping them get processed swiftly? And the answer is no.
No.
What about BLM? Do you hear anything about BLM? Absolutely not.
Well, actually...
Well, you do, but...
you see in the news a couple of things, but we'll cover that on a different episode because there are a lot of different scandals that have come out recently.
Yeah, that is a lot of scandals,
But by nearly every measure... They try to say that Trump is racist, but by nearly every measure, Latinos as a whole in the United States of America have shifted to Republican votes. And people like to argue that, Donald Trump was a horrible racist. But what racist authorizes billions of dollars to be given back to the black community? What racist argues that billions of dollars should not be given to the Latino community?
What racist makes it the easiest it's ever been to legally immigrate to this country? That is a legitimate question.
And the liberals flip crap because it's where all their votes come from.
Yep. They all come from the immigrants or the illegal immigrants that are coming over the border. And the reason that is because the left is saying we need to soften our borders. We need to not have
open borders.
We need to not have borders. It needs to be basically I can walk to Mexico and back and be completely fine. Well, I'm an American. I can do that anyways, but still.
But the problem with that is that if you've ever gone to California from any other state, there's border patrol checkpoints where they check if you have bananas in your car.
Yep.
Because they don't want to spread a fruit disease, which is totally great. But you're arguing that we shouldn't check if illegals have, drugs and illegal guns in their cars that are arguably spreading a much worse disease among the population of people.
You know, it is sad when your fruit and vegetables have more of a checkpoint than the illegal immigrants that are pouring into this country tenfold by tens and thousands of people yearly.
It makes sense because Biden's a vegetable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, at what, almost 150 years old, he's been
150. I thought he was from the 12th century.
He helped Jesus tie his sandals.
He helped cure the Black Plague.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what he was in office for the fourth time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's been trying to run for president for almost 20 years, and hey, he got his wish. Look at the economy and look at everything that we have right now. Me and Marshall are from Arizona. We see this daily,
especially from such a shifting state. We're a hotbed, just like Florida and just like other states for political growth. I mean, we used to be a red state, and then we were a purple state during the Donald Trump election, and now we're a blue state under the Biden election.
So let's look at it this way, right? We have a Republican governor. 2 Democratic senators, 4 Republican House of Representative members, and 5 Democratic House of Representative members. Right? The dynamic in Arizona is 33% Democrat, 32.5% Independent, and 32% even Republican.
Which is really insane. And I mean, you can factor libertarians into that,
which
independent factor, but they don't make up that much of the argument.
Mm-hmm. And then there's all the other third parties that make up the other 1.5%. But back to the border, we have to look at the point where we say, this person is okay. They have to be put through the process immediately. We can't wait 6 months to lock them in cages where some of them are dying.
It's absolutely inhumane.
Yeah, some of the people in the cages are dying.
Children are being separated from their parents.
Absolutely. And you can't wait to have this 6-month period. It has to be done as quickly as possible. Under the Trump administration, we had this time down to about 2 months.
And the reason being is because we poured funding into our Border Patrol. By nearly every measure, the Border Patrol gets paid less than our police officers.
Which are now getting defunded, by the way.
Which got defunded. They realized that defunding our protectorate institutions was a really bad thing when it came to mobs around the White House and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no. When we have mobs around the White House and mobs around Supreme Justice's houses, which we talked about in our last episode, this is where we have to say, this is where we draw a line.
Crime rates going up,
Absolutely.
And I mean, you can't defund the police and expect the crime rates to stay the same or dip.
Defund the police. You defund the police. You defund the Border Patrol, and then you wonder why crime is running rampant. And a lot of it is coming from the illegal immigrants that are pouring over our border. They're drug cartel members. They are traffickers. They are people that want to do us harm. Not all of them, of course.
But it's actually by nearly every measure, it's like 30%.
Yeah,
or less.
But 30% of, let's say, 10,000 people cross the border every day, which is a generally fair estimate.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
We have 10,000 people crossing the border every single day. That's 3,000 people a day that want to do us harm, right?
Well, kind of. It depends. Sometimes it's less than that, and sometimes it's more. But the thing is that doing us harm leads into more of the statistic, because there are people that will just sit around collecting your taxpayer dollars,
which is
the money
right.
from you working, getting free insurance, free healthcare, free food, free water, a free house. Free, but you're working for it. It's because it's not free.
This is the same administration that during their first month and a half, that when COVID was rampant, they opened the borders. They let illegal immigrants into places like El Paso, Texas, where they were sitting under bridges, untested, carrying the coronavirus. Do you know how much Texas spiked in COVID cases? They were one of the lowest states in the nation, and all of a sudden,
even
overnight,
without a mask mandate,
even without a mask mandate, which shocker, and overnight they had their numbers jumped 250%, 250 to 275%.
They tried to blame that on people not getting the vaccine, but actually, the majority of the American population has gotten vaccinated. I've been vaccinated. I mean, because I subscribe to that. But I also think it's personal choice. But
it's really weird to have everything pointing in one direction and our government completely turning a blind eye. Our government turning around and saying, well, we're not going to look at the border.
And it's not, it is kind of our government because they're compliant, but it's mostly Fauci. Fauci is the most the most paid government official in the United States ever. He has the highest paycheck by nearly every measure.
Yep.
And that's just insane. All he is a director. All he is managing medical stuff for the country. I mean, why should he be paid more than the president? That's
and why should he also be giving us topics on, or why should he be giving us advice on the border crisis? He couldn't even handle COVID.
Yeah, but you should wear your masks still, because
don't forget to double your masks.
Oh yeah, double your masks.
Right? It's absolutely crazy that we have someone who has no idea what they're talking about, either in the medical profession or in the border crisis, which we are currently going through, who is giving advice to the worst vice president we have had in the history of America, who, by the way, now she is going, Kamala Harris is going to other countries saying, we need to secure your borders, we need to make sure you guys are safe, and she comes back home to America and says, open the border, please.
Yeah, but guys, we really need to work together, and how we work together is by working together. And And guys, I
Can-
really think that we should work together.
Can we please play that
Really, really
clip?
well.
Like right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
like,
we'll play it.
it's not very relevant, but
Yeah,
it definitely
I mean,
needs to be
yeah,
played.
Yeah, so we'll play that now.
That is especially true when it comes to the climate crisis, which is why we will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on to galvanize global action. With that, I thank you all. This is a matter of urgent priority for all of us, and I know we will work on this together.
Absolutely insane.
And she said that she went to the border, but that's not really true. She
went
just
once. She went once.
Kind of. She went to Austin, the only liberal city in Texas. And,
Partially Houston, but yeah.
Well, yeah. But she went to the only liberal mayor in Texas, and talked to her for a little bit, but never really went to the border. Never really saw what's going on. Never really saw the wall. Never really saw people drowning. I mean, there's a real problem when someone says that they're doing something and then does it.
They're not completely doing it. She never went down to the border and saw the faces of the Border Patrol officers who are making less than our teachers and who are in absolute shambles right now because
one of our English teachers left the Border Patrol for a teaching job because it's so absolutely horrible. They're understaffed, they're underpaid, and they don't know what they're doing. Under the Trump administration, we funded the Border Patrol
and
like
police.
We should have. And I mean, the wall, I kind of think it was unnecessary, but
I'm not saying that it was 100% necessary, but was it effective? Generally.
Of course it was, because
Yes.
you were pouring more money into the Border Patrol as a result. I like the outcome of it. That got completely overturned by the Biden administration that completely cut the contract.
So now one of the
federal government
scandals
had.
Yeah, one of the scandals that is coming from the border right now is they are so the wall that the government signed a contract for, they are now going up to the company that's doing it and they're saying, hey, by the way, we are going to take this away from you. You're not going to have, we're putting you out of a job, which for an administration that vouched we're going to get you your jobs back.
The Build Back Better.
Yeah, exactly. For an administration to go over and take billions of dollars worth of jobs away from Americans,
Well, probably not billions, but hundreds of millions, of course.
Hundreds and hundreds of
but
millions.
billions of dollars worth of material that's just sitting out there. I've seen it myself. I've been to Sierra Vista, which is a town on the border of Arizona, and there's just material sitting there. You know, it's crazy. But currently, the federal government is in a suit with the. The construction company is suing the federal government for breach of contract because it is, and
It
it's
absolutely
illegal.
is. Well, and I mean when that decision comes out, that is something we are definitely going to do a daily news segment on. I mean, you have to stay tuned for that. So, well, what about the people that are in the White House right now and they're saying, "Well, I don't want to be seen as a racist. So, what about this? Why not put thousands of illegal immigrants a day? We're going to put them on planes. We're going to send them to places like New York, send them to places like LA, and we're going to shuttle them on buses away." I mean, the only actual news station that is covering this right now, although all of them know about it, is Fox News. And I'm not a big voucher for Fox News. A lot of their stuff.
Some of it is authoritarian, right? And we don't agree with some of their perspectives on some things.
But this needs to be talked about.
Of course.
This absolutely is not something that needs to go behind the shadows, which the left is completely shunning away from. I mean, like here's just some of the clips that are coming from Fox News. Look at this. It is absolutely unbelievable.
It's insane.
You trying to figure out what this is?
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
You know, you're on a secure facility here, and we don't really know anything, and we're in charge of security. So that's hence where we're having a problem here. So
Yeah, we're hanging out here on the tarmac, just like that.
I don't know anybody.
I used to pick up basketball teams that had more security.
100%. Yeah. You know, and very easily, you know, a few people could just go that way. So I'm here to. Oh yeah. I mean, it's slowly coming together, but we also don't know, you know, really what's happening, how they're getting here, whatever else.
You don't want to be somewhere where the spotlight is.
Yeah.
You want to try to keep it as down low as possible. A lot of this is just
No, I get it. I
down
just,
low
like I said,
stuff that we don't tell people because what we don't want to do is attract attention. We don't want the media.
Yeah.
Like we don't even know where we're going when they tell.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely insane that we're allowing these types of things to happen, especially since we already have these homeless populations in LA and New York and all of these other places. And are we taking care of them?
No,
No.
we're not. It is absolutely insane that we have a person in power right now that is not going to do anything about this. And not only that, he is going to leaps and bounds to make it happen. This is happening under the Biden administration. This didn't happen under Trump.
Yeah.
This didn't happen, albeit he was a little shady, under Obama.
And it didn't happen because of Putin, as the left tries to say.
Yeah. I mean, all because Putin is now taking over Ukraine, and now America can be free to do whatever they want to.
Oh, because America is such a horribly racist country. Let's go to the situation in Ukraine, where we're openly advocating for Ukraine's border rights and saying, Putin, you shouldn't invade, and openly advocating for gun rights for the Ukrainian people, giving them guns, the civilians, just openly. And
you turn around.
Look at our country.
Exactly. It is insane the fact that you can turn around, you come back to America, and they say, if you have a gun, this is completely illegal. You go to New York, you go to Chicago, you go to California as a whole.
Yeah.
If you have a gun on your person whatsoever, arrested. Minimum
except for California, because California you can take like a $50 test and then a $100 test and then a $150 test and then,
not really California, but
and
definitely
then have a self-defense rock.
Yep. It's nice.
So, but we see this happening in Ukraine, that they're advocating for border rights and gun control. But the real problem that we're running into is that they're propagating the same exact thing against Americans, especially with the border rights that Ukrainians have.
Yep. It's insane the fact that you can go out, you can vouch for someone else's border, and you come home and you say, nah, we're not going to do that. It's like the really nice stepmother to everyone else, and then you turn around and you come home and it's like, well, I don't know what happened here, but you're a different person now.
Yeah, like she's whipping you and beating you and calling you a whole amalgamation of names, kind of like leftists.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Welcome to the left. And on today's podcast, it's
on today's
crazy.
podcast, you're a racist homophobe, and I really think that everybody should have free healthcare and
free the borders. Open the borders.
Open the borders and allow a bunch of people in. I don't pay taxes myself, but I think that everybody that does pay taxes should pay for those people.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I also support people being locked up in cages for 6 months.
Yep.
Because I'm a leftist.
Yep. So I have a question. Now, do you personally know what Justin Trudeau... So Biden had a meeting with Justin Trudeau about 3 to 5 months ago, basically saying, you should do what we did with our borders. You should open them up. What do you think about that? Do you know what Justin Trudeau said? He said, absolutely not. You're crazy.
We don't want a bunch of crazy Americans in our country.
Exactly.
I mean,
like,
everybody's like, Canada's such a progressive, leftist country. I
and
want to move to Canada.
And they are securing their borders more than ever, right?
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID, because of the stance that America is taking on their borders, they don't want the drug problem in Canada
because
that we are having
there.
Yeah, that we're having in America.
I mean, they're already having a problem with drugs, but
well, and truck drivers apparently.
Well, yeah, but opening the borders more will only hurt that.
And that is something we need to learn in America, where we already have a huge, major drug problem in America.
I mean, drug cartels are centrally located throughout reservations all across the United States of America.
Absolutely.
We, at our local reservation, we had an FBI squad come in, and they had to do reconnaissance, but the FBI is a totally useless organization that, doesn't do a lot of good except for points out the obvious that, police officers could have done in a regular report and then gets double the pay. But,
yep.
But on a side note, they came in, and because the drug problem was so bad, do you know how much it takes to motivate an FBI agent to do anything?
A lot of drugs, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. But it's just an insane thing, and it's this network throughout our country, and really, we need to fix that.
Absolutely.
And not to mention reform, well, not really reform, but betterment of reservations, because if you go to a reservation in the United States, by saying this, I'm not saying that natives are bad people. I love natives. They are great people. But reservations as a whole are pretty messed up. There's trash, and a lot of people can agree with that. A lot of people, if you go out and look, there's a lot of trash and stray dogs and stuff like that, but we need to fix that, and by fixing that, we can also fix the drug problem that's happening, the drug network that cartels are operating in.
Absolutely.
In a web connecting Mexico to Canada and Mexico all throughout the United States. So
I feel like this became not only just an episode of the border crisis, this became an episode on the whole entire defunctionalization of the government, because so here's another thing that's wrong with our government based on the border. Look at it this way. We have mothers who are going out there, they're looking for baby formula for their children, right? And they go out there, and in America, we have a 36% baby food shortage. Baby formula shortage,
which
rather.
Is absolutely insane, and I mean it's because of the Biden administration as a whole, and he's saying these things that like food shortages are going to continue, and inflation's going to continue, but why?
Those are direct problems that are coming directly from the White House, from the man in the chair.
That could have been solved months ago.
Absolutely, and
this wouldn't have happened. They like to pin it on this this one factory that produces baby formula. They like to pin all the issues on this one factory, but there's not just one factory that's making all of the baby formula for the entire United States.
And the one factory that was producing a lot of, it was about 56% of the baby formula.
Sure.
It came back, and the test came back and said there were no contaminants in the facility whatsoever. The contaminants that were supposedly supposed to be in the baby formula were not in any other bottle of baby formula. They were not found in the facility, and they still shut it down. It has yet to be. It is not coming back online for at least another 2.5 weeks.
Oh, for sure. And that's just insane, because babies are now starving.
Yes.
There are women that, and they try to make this argument that's totally insane. That's like, yeah, but just use
breast milk
from the woman, right?
Yep.
But there's a couple issues with that. One,
not everyone can produce breast milk,
and also sometimes babies just don't latch.
Absolutely.
I mean that. It's just a truth. But so, that argument is totally disproved. Makes no sense whatsoever.
I have a question. So if we're running on a functioning society right now and we're progressing backwards, should we also, back in the old days when the child didn't latch, or the mother couldn't produce milk, you know what they did? They chucked it off a cliff.
Yeah, we should throw all our babies off a cliff now.
I mean, if the left wants to progress backwards, by all means, let's progress backwards. Let's start chucking children off cliffs.
Let's start dressing up in bones and skulls and start hitting each other with axes.
Absolutely.
Because and there's no laws. There's no laws. Just
Nope.
shoot everybody that you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that the way that we're progressing is not forward.
It's backwards.
It's backwards. The way that we're progressing is absolutely in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to go for something that the founding fathers 300 years ago, rather, almost, were trying to stop in its tracks. We are trying to
warning against it.
They were warning against it, and this is the reason why we have the system we do. They are trying to go back to the system which has fundamentally failed them, the system which we decided to get on ships and go away from.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to go back to a system where we are saying, hey, let's do all of this openly. Now, the left has formulated the argument that the EU is so prosperous because they have open borders. Well, this is what the EU has done. The EU has done the open border policy because of the way they've seen the American states trade between each other, right? If we were to completely seal off the United States, we would still be the most industrialized country in the world based on the economy we have between the essentially many nations
the
that are
federalist economy that we have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The many nations that you consider states, we could consider them mini countries.
Yeah, why not? I mean, in the EU, it's more of like an economic affiliation.
It is the exact same.
Not a political one, but definitely an economic one. But the border policy in the EU is like much stricter than the United States currently.
So the United States basically took the part in the EU, which is a very small part, and it says, sure, open borders. And that's all it's like reading through a book and going to one page and reading the end. And that's all you read. You're like, oh, what was the book about? It was about doomsday. It was about the end. That's all I read. It's like reading a book about fairy tales and reading the end at the very end of it and going, oh my gosh, it's about death. It's about the end. Shutting the book and going and telling someone else. That's the exact same thing that is happening right here. They looked at the part of the EU which said open borders. They didn't look at the part where it was saying with strict rules between the countries, and they came back and they said, you know what? We don't need a border at Mexico. We're going to let everyone in illegally, and we're going to make that legal so that they're no longer considered illegal. And what we're going to do is we're going to completely change the way that America was written, and it's going to completely change the idea of America, right?
And if you recall, President Emmanuel Macron from France,
Yep.
he closed off France's borders because of terrorism, right? He didn't want any more migrants from the Middle East because there were so many terrorist attacks going on within the country. Would you call that xenophobic? I don't remember the left or anybody calling Emmanuel Macron the socialist progressive.
Would you call it racist?
Xenophobic or racist?
It is crazy that we have such division in this country over such a controversial issue. Well, that does make sense.
Well, yeah.
But over an issue that should be so simple as the border. And I think we were going to talk, and we're still going to talk about some of the ways to fix this. I think, personally, one of the ways to fix this is further background checks. In the 6 months where you're doing nothing, why not be a little productive? Do quite a few background checks on the person,
Yeah.
quite a few background checks on the family that they're tied with, and quite a few background checks on the friends
require a passport.
And yeah, well, require a passport, but the friends and loved ones that they are connected with, instead of sitting them in a essentially a jail cell for 6 months doing absolutely nothing when you could be doing something productive, helping the country.
See, when we fund the Border Patrol more, the processing is guaranteed to go by faster.
Yep.
We can probably process more than the amount of migrants that are coming through the border a day, and I think that we should keep the ones outside of the border that we can't run legitimate background checks on. And if we require a passport, and let's say that you are an illegal immigrant that is seeking asylum, right?
Yep.
Shows up to the U.S. border, goes through the processing. It takes you, let's say, an hour at most, or less. Let's say it takes you 20 minutes, and you're able to provide a passport, fill out some documentation, boom, you're into the United States with a green card. You can apply for citizenship later. Thank you, goodbye. You know, it could be as simple as that, but instead, we're keeping them in cages.
Do you want to know another thing that I don't particularly like with this Border Patrol? Is the fact that, I mean, we can release people into America. We can say, hey, you're free to go, but when we release them, we don't get back to them on their green card citizenship. We don't get back to them in any form at all until they are expected to show up miraculously 5 years later at a court date hearing for it. We need to keep track of them. We need to we need to know where they are, because the possibilities of the future that they bring are endless.
Endless, of course.
If we were to grant them citizenship, they would have so many more opportunities in this country. Do you know how hard it is to go up and get a job at somewhere that pays decent, saying, hey, I have all this training, but I'm not a legalized citizen yet. And they say, I'm sorry, we can't hire you because you're not a citizen.
Right, and it's a really big problem, and we're pouring trillions of American tax dollars into our federal government. We're giving hundreds of billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine. We're giving billions of dollars of money for gender studies to Pakistan. Pakistan's a Muslim nation. They aren't confused about their gender, is what I'm going to say.
That's essentially what, yeah.
We're pouring all this money into these institutions that don't do anything for the American people.
Yep.
And why not redirect that money? Why not show the American people the results of their taxation every single day? Because, sure, taxation without representation was a fundamental basis for the founding of our country, because Britain was just saying, we're here to collect your taxes. But there's another definition of representation other than our representatives, and that is the American people seeing the effect of their taxpayer money.
Absolutely.
In things that help them in day-to-day life. We don't need trillions of dollars for an infrastructure bill, and if we do, then we should divert it from other places that don't need it, that are allowing our Congress to write in paid leaves, that are allowing our congressmen and women and our government officials to become millionaires or billionaires while in office.
Yep.
It shouldn't happen on a $100,000 a year base salary.
I don't think I could have put it better myself.
Yeah.
It's insane what the government has been able to get up to. And this includes today's topic, which was the border. Don't know if it's still the border, but it was.
Well, I mean, we're still arguing off of the basest fundamental premises that our government is not managing our money correctly, but we'll get to that in an economy episode, but especially as it pertains to the border, as we're arguing in here, because we're not seeing the results of our money.
Nope.
We're not seeing the representation, but we are seeing the rampant taxation. We are seeing increases in taxes. And they're trying to... The left, for the majority, is seeing the inflation problem and trying to blame it on the Trump administration for lowering taxes. And I don't know how lowering taxes makes inflation go higher. Explain that to me.
Yeah, explain that one to me, because I don't understand that either. See, the key thing, and this is something we're going to absolutely deep dive into in our next episode, which is the economy. The thing that creates inflation is the printing and mismanagement of the money that we have going on in the White House currently.
Yeah,
the overprinting and the management of our money that is going into the government right now.
And what that government is doing with that money, the mismanagement of it, especially as it pertains to the border, because we're not funding our border patrol. We're not completing the wall that we already paid for, by the way.
If this lawsuit goes in the favor of the company, which I believe it will,
I believe it will too, because breach of contract is illegal.
Yep. Do you know how much that is going to how much strain that is going to put on the American taxpayer?
Billions of dollars. It'll cost the American people more money in taxes for the legal suit that's going to come out of this for breach of contract than to just finish the wall.
Yep.
Than to just pour more money into our border patrol that would make life so much easier in our country. That would make everything so much easier. It would make the lives of those immigrants that are being trapped in cells for 6 months at a time or more, the children that are being separated from their parents, it would make their lives easier.
Absolutely.
But no, we need more taxes, and that's going to somehow decrease inflation.
It's insane that you can go from something of such prosperity where we had a 2-month waiting period. Now, 2 months is still way too long.
It's an egregiously long time, but we were working it down.
We were working it down, and it is now to the point where it is 6 months.
Can you imagine being trapped in a literal cage, separated from your children, or separated from your parents if you are a child?
Hardly any food or
with
water.
With a space blanket, rationed food and water, sleeping on a concrete floor.
In 100-degree heat.
Or cold.
Or, 100-degree heat.
Depending on the AC.
Yeah, depending on when it is. Generally, it's not very well air-conditioned, right?
Or it's overly well.
Or it's overly air-conditioned, right? So, you're sitting in Texas or Arizona or, places where it is immensely hot. It is absolutely insane temperatures, 100, 115, 120-degree heat with no air conditioning or over air conditioning.
We're talking about the desert here.
It's either 55 degrees or 155 degrees in there. There is no in between.
Or less than 55 degrees in some cases.
Yep.
I mean, there are people that have died from exposure inside of buildings.
That is insane. I want you to try and wrap your mind around that. How can you be exposed to something when you haven't been let out of a 6x6 cage in months? How does that happen?
And Biden said that we're going to get all of those people out of the cages, but has actually increased the amount of time that they are spending in those cages and has taken absolutely no action other than stopping the wall.
Yep.
Which is insane.
I mean,
it's a decently emotional issue, and I mean, it gets pretty heated about this because any rational person would not support the death of children inside of cages at our border due to temperature.
This is insane, and we cannot allow this to go any longer.
Yeah,
and that's where I stop it right there. So
yeah.
I thank you guys so much for listening to us rant about the border.
I mean,
it was a semi-structured episode that I feel like went well.
Yeah, I think it went well as well. We like our episodes to be more of a free flow conversation. It keeps on going, hitting points along the way, semi-structured but also free flow.
Yeah,
so,
it keeps it a little more interesting, and
of course,
sometimes we can lay back a little bit. I'm sure you've heard the difference in tone from the very beginning and the middle, like in the different segments of the episode,
and then the end. Of course,
yeah, the end. We just kind of relax a little bit. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. we've been your hosts, Alan
and Marshall, and we love to have you on Policast.
Absolutely. Please feel free to email us, policast32@gmail.com. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
DM us on Instagram as well.
Yeah, DM us on Instagram. We actually had one person who we had an absolutely lovely conversation with. We've had multiple people that have talked to us, but this one person in particular has just absolutely...
Totally random person.
Totally random person.
We absolutely love the support for the podcast, especially with that first episode, because we were kind of on edge.
Yeah, we were kind of like, we posted it and we were like, I don't know how this is going to go. I have heard nothing but absolutely overwhelming support. Thank you guys so much.
Far left.
Yeah, even from the far left. Thank you guys so much for all the support that you've given us so far, and thank you for everything that you are doing to help grow our channel and our content and just the podcast in general.
And if you're on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, and if you're on Spotify, be sure to follow us, turn notifications on, and rate our podcast 5 stars, because that's how we get out to everybody. Or leave a comment on our YouTube channel if you want to see anything done differently. Share it if you feel so inclined.
Share our podcast to people who you feel like would like our podcast. We want to grow our audience to where we have people that are listening from both perspectives, which we do currently have, but we want more.
We want more, and we want more people on this show as well.
Absolutely. We can't do this without the support of you guys, and so thank you for everything that you've done. Again, make sure to come over and talk to us. Twitter, Instagram, Gmail. Our Twitter and Instagram, it will be in the description, but they are real_Policast, and then our Gmail is policast32@gmail.com. So please feel free to reach out to us. Go ahead and talk to us. If you didn't agree with any part of this segment, please tell us about it.
And we're totally open to new opinions. We'd love to hear insight on this to help us develop our arguments and to help you, the listener, develop yours.
Absolutely. We would love to make our segments a little more concise.
Concise, of course. But also the free flow helps us develop our points more. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But this has been Policast on the Border, and we're your hosts, Marshall.
And Alan. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.